Welcome to Wood Burning University. My name is Manisa, and today I'm going to show you how to make a wood burning of a cute little cat. Now before we get started, make sure to check out woodburninguniversity.com, where you can find this project available as both a pattern and a full-length tutorial. Our patterns at Wood Burning University are copyright free and available for commercial use. So if you create a wood burning off of one of our patterns, you are able to sell your project if you wish. Now the first thing we need to do is make sure that our reference photo is the same size as our wood burning. So I have my piece of wood. This is basswood and it is sanded already. And we're going to take our reference photo, which is the same size as our piece of wood, and we're going to cut this out. We're going to tape our image onto the wood. Next we use graphite paper with the shiny side up and the dark side down, and we're going to slip this in between our reference photo and our piece of wood. I'll be using the Walnut Hollow Creative Versa tool and the mini flow point. We're going to use this much like you would use a pencil. You're going to slowly and lightly burn the outline of the cat. You'll want to make sure that you don't press down too hard. Pressing down too hard can cause the point to dig into the wood, and it will make it more difficult to create straight, even lines. It also helps if you work in shorter strokes and then lift the burner and set it back down. The slower that you move the burner, the darker the line will be. As you can see, when you burn across the grain, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get an even line, so you can gently burn back over it to smoothen it out. This is where light pressure is especially important, because if you press harder when going across the grain, you're more likely to sink the burner into the grain of the wood, and it'll be more difficult to create a smooth, even line. So I'm going to start by burning around the highlights. You want to make sure that you stay quite a ways away from these highlights, and they're going to look kind of big and chunky to start with, and then we can go ahead and trim those down here in a little bit. Once you have the main features outlined within the cat's eye, we can slowly start to fill that in with a solid dark shading. And we're going to slowly fill in the dark part of the eye. Next we move on to the other eye and we outline the main highlights. I'm adding in a few little lines right here at the outside of the eye. That'll give it kind of a cuter appearance. Next we're going to fill in the dark portions of the eye. Now we're creating upward strokes that taper off within the ear, so they'll be dark at the bottom and lighter at the top as they taper. And we'll do some on the other side as well. Now let's add some zigzag lines where the darkness of the ear meets the light fur of the face. And we can add some more dark values in to create depth within the ear. Now if you find that you are developing a little bit of carbon on your point, it's going to be kind of a black charcoal looking appearance, you can set this off to the side for a couple minutes and let it burn off. Or you can turn the burner off and clean the point. using a soft brush, like a soft brass brush. Now keep in mind that we are only outlining the darkest values here, the darkest lines. You can see as we're burning across the grain, the whiskers look a little bit jagged. We'll clean that up here in just a bit. So you can always go back over these whiskers again and go a little bit slower and try to even them up. And if you find that you want to kind of accentuate the cat's leg here, you can go back over and make that line a little bit thicker. We're adding in just a few more little fur areas, a few strokes that indicate fur. A lot of times fur will show up as an inverted or upside down V, so you can add in some of those. Any part of the cat that looks a little bit empty, you can go ahead and add in just a few little more fur strokes if you'd like. A lot of these lines kind of wrap around with the tail. So if you like, you can leave the cat as is, or you can follow along with me and we're going to add a little bit extra shading. Now for the shading, I'm going to switch over to the Walnut Hollow Creative Versatool and the shading point. We're going to start with some of our darker areas of shading, such as the back side of the ears. We're just going to lay that point gently on the wood using the upper tip. And you would use this much like you would use a pencil. You don't want the entire flat portion to be touching the wood. You want to be using just that upper tip. And just use a back and forth motion, kind of follow the direction of the fur. But you're going to be using a very flat angle with this shading point. And if your shading is not really smooth, that's okay. That will actually add to a little bit of realism and give some depth to the fur. So don't worry about your shading being perfect. It can be irregular. But I am following the direction of the fur. That is quite important. It's much more important to follow the direction of the fur than it is to get smooth and perfect shading. And here is also some of the darker sections of the tail as it curves around in the shadow. We're going to make sure that we burn around this light section that's underneath the eye. I'm going to add a little bit more shading along the back side of the cat, on the outside of its face. This will give the cat's face a little bit more of a rounded appearance. So after we have some of the darker areas, let's shade a few of these lighter zones. We're going to bring a little bit more light shading across the chest. And next we're going to lightly shade part of the face. So I'm using longer strokes, which will make the burn marks just a little bit lighter in value. We're going to add a little bit more shading inside of the ear. We're also going to lightly shade a little bit right here. And congratulations, you have finished your wood burning of a cat.